Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the 6th episode of the In Off the Post podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Bevan, and I'm here once again with the usual suspects, Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
What's up?
And on today's Halloween and Movember special, we talk about the best ever screamer goals, the best facial hair in football, our top 5 most underrated footballers in the Premier League, and can Man City go a whole season undefeated, beating the Invincibles of Arsenal? But first of all, we go into the results, reaction, and the roundup with Ross.
So yeah, a pretty uneventful week of football compared to last weekend. We'll start off with Saturday's games. Stoke winning away at Watford 1-0, which is quite interesting given Watford's recent run of form. Chelsea also winning 1-0 away to Bournemouth thanks to a 51st minute goal from Eden Hazard. So it was a deserved win from a dominant performance from Chelsea, who got 18 shots on goal compared to Bournemouth's 7. Pretty dominant win for Chelsea. The score didn't necessarily reflect it. So then Liverpool winning 3-0 to Huddersfield at home. Quite a good result for Liverpool and Klopp's men. Obviously Jurgen Klopp triumphing over his old mate David Wagner.
It's the best bromance in football, isn't it?
So despite a missed penalty from Mohamed Salah in the first half, Liverpool did get a 3-0 win. Great result for Liverpool. One thing to take away from this game, though, is that there are still major problems in Liverpool's side, specifically in midfield, and I think Liverpool fans can't wait for the transfer of Naby Keita to come soon enough, basically. So,
isn't there a rumour there's a clause that they can bring him in January for a little bit more than the 55 million they'd agreed for next summer?
I've not read anything about that, but if I was Liverpool, I'd certainly look into that.
I'll definitely pay an extra 10 million to have him now.
What is the actual deal for the people listening on the table at the moment?
Well, they bought him last summer.
Right.
He won't be able to play, so he's got one more season with Leipzig.
It's like a loan, but it's more of, to be honest, a promise that they'll pay them next season.
It's sort of similar to the PSG.
It's like
sort of.
Chelsea
They've already got it.
Yeah, Chelsea have done a lot of things where they've bought players and loaned them straight back to clubs, like with Juan Cuadrado. They did that quite a lot, and it's a similar thing to that, basically. So yeah, impressive win for Liverpool, showing that they can bounce back. Which leads us into one of the more interesting results of Saturday. Crystal Palace and West Ham, the 2-2 draw. The goal in the 97th minute from Wilfried Zaha, securing a point for Palace.
It was the most Wilfried Zaha goal ever as well, wasn't it? He ran too far, then cut inside, and then somehow managed to squeeze it into the far corner.
But I did think Crystal Palace dominated that game, though. It was just Joe Hart who basically kept West Ham in it in terms of like possession, attempts on target. Palace did dominate that game.
He didn't know very much about that worldy save that he made, though, did he? With his wrist.
But interesting point to take out is Arnautovic didn't start for West Ham again. What's going wrong there?
I guess it's his attitude, maybe.
Probably.
We've talked about him on the show before. Me and Liam are both big fans of him, aren't we?
Yeah, love the guy.
So this leads us where I'll pass it on to Liam for Arsenal's 2-1 win against Swansea at home.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask you guys a quick question before it. Do you reckon that we've beaten Swansea more at the Liberty, or they've beaten us more at the Emirates?
I think Swansea have beaten you more at the Emirates.
What about you?
I'm going to go same.
Yeah. Absolutely for this match. They had, but we played the same team against Everton. Dominated them, but sort of against the run of play. It was just a concession of errors by the team. Koscielny didn't really communicate very well with Bellerin, and then he sort of stumbles. It was almost like a dive for no reason. And then Bellerin's caught napping, and I think it was Sam Klukas who ran in behind him and scored his first ever Swansea goal.
Yeah, that's correct.
Against
from wing back.
With a Tammy Abraham assist, which was quite a nice assist.
It was. But we bounced back. First half was quite lacklustre, but Kolasinac was brilliant in the game.
He was such a good player. I'm so glad as well Wenger started to play him as a left wing back as well, because that is his position.
Because they only played 4 at the back, and obviously we essentially had 5. He was completely open, and you could tell that Wenger knew this, because I think throughout the game, Xhaka played across ball field to him 9 times in total,
Oh gosh.
which is a lot. And
Well, you got a goal and assist. which
yeah, a goal and assist,
Aaron
which
Ramsey
paid
as
off.
well, scoring 2 games in a row, I believe now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that second goal was just, I think, 3 left foots in a row. Xhaka with Kolasinac, then Kolasinac into the box to Ramsey. But 3 times last week we were actually 1-0 down and we came back to win the game. So showing some spirit at the moment, which we'll need to play in Manchester City next.
Yeah, you've got a tough run of games coming
We
up. So
do.
it was very vital that you got those 3 points against Swansea.
Yeah, to carry that in against them is crucial.
Let me just try and get up the run of fixtures. And,
Yeah, it's
one
definitely
sec.
City next. And I mean, they're bound to score a goal against us, so you need that fight back, which we've shown last week. But other than that, it was a really good performance.
Yeah, so the next 2 fixtures for Arsenal in the league are against Man City away and against Tottenham at home.
Oh god, I can't
So
wait to talk
those
about
are
those.
going to be a couple of great games.
I'm rubbing my hands together thinking about it already.
It's going to be good.
So yeah, which leads us into West Brom 2, Man City 3. A very interesting game as well, may I add. Gabriel Jesus came in for Aguero on the bench, and despite us predicting last week that Aguero was going to smash the Man City top goal scorers record, he didn't do it. No, he hasn't
just
quite done it
waiting.
yet. He is just waiting.
It's
So
deliberate.
this means that City are now on 8 successive league wins, and that's quite impressive.
This is the
Ridiculous.
best ever start to any Premier League season after after 10 games. Well, in the history of the Premier League, for Man City, or for any team, and
Well, they're on. Is it 28 points?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
28 points with a plus 29 goal difference. So
drawn
they're
one
just
game.
trying to.
But here's a great stat for you. As you say, they've won 8 in a row now. In their last 8 games, they've got an aggregate score of 32-5, which means they're conceding less than a goal a game and on average scoring 4.
Well, I've got another stat. It's 10 goals so far, 10 games, 28 points, and 35 goals so far for City this season. That's just a ridiculous attacking record.
This is a stat attack. I'm going to throw another one back at you. Since Opta Stats began, which was in 2003-2004, no team in the Premier League has ever made as many passes as Man City did against
No,
West
I had
Brom.
that stat noted down as well.
Oh.
And you know who else held the previous record?
Who was it?
Man City in 2011.
Well, there we are then. So Man City stats for days, lads.
So yeah, it was a Fernandinho assist for a bullet of a shot from Sané to make it 1-0 in the 10th minute. Cracking goal, cracking finish.
Brilliant.
We've all talked about Leroy Sané, and then Jay Rodriguez levelled the score with a bit of shoddy defending by City in the 13th minute. Between all 3 goals, Fernandinho then regained the lead with a mildly deflected shot from outside the box in the 15th minute. Great finish as well.
Absolutely.
We were just saying before we were recording how much we rate Fernandinho highly and how he's been having a fantastic season. He could finally look like he could be that person to replace Yaya Toure in sort of Man City's big, well not physically big, but key midfielder role, like as a holding midfielder.
So
The weird
box to
thing-
box for
so-
him.
The weird thing about the formation they're playing is they're playing a back 3 without wing backs and just Fernandinho in front of them. And Fernandinho's getting goals, so he's not even protecting the back 3.
There's just goals coming from everywhere, and so we've talked about it previously. But another fun stat for you: it was only 4 minutes and 38 seconds between all 3 goals in the game. So other than that, 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Well,
West Brom
yeah.
held it. And West Brom aren't even doing that badly.
Mind you, we talk about 8 successive league wins for Man City. This is now 8 games without a win for West Brom.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
dear,
that.
I didn't think. I wouldn't.
Oh, I thought
from
they
a
were
Tony
doing much
Pulis
better.
Side,
Well,
yeah.
where are they in the table right now?
That's a good question.
I've got it here. Where are they? They're 15th place.
Oh,
They finished really highly last season, though, didn't they? And
Yeah.
they haven't really made too many additions. They brought in that Hegsy lad who seems to have been doing all right. I know the West Brom fans love him.
Kieran Gibbs as well. They obviously brought him in.
Some cracking business there from Arsene Wenger.
Yeah.
Turning down
indeed.
12 million, accepting 7.
How dare you?
So, but if there's one thing that we can take from this game is the one thing that could potentially cost City the title. If there's one thing that will cost them the title, it's defensive errors, I think.
Well, I mean, their defence probably don't even know what the players in front of them look like. They must be staring at the
They
back
don't
of their
see 'em
heads
enough,
for so
yeah.
long. And then, I mean, it does leave you exposed. If you're not defending for high amounts of the game, you know, you're going to be exposed, you know, at one time or another.
But even on paper, that partnership of John Stones and Otamendi, it's nowhere near as strong on paper as the players that go along with them on the team sheet from midfield all the way up to attack. Even the fullbacks. The fullbacks are, I think, they're more solid on paper than the centre-back partnership of Otamendi and John Stones.
But Kyle Walker's almost playing as a right winger. You know, he's
Well,
playing so far up the
that
pitch,
comes
getting so
naturally.
many assists.
If you're playing a three at the back, that comes naturally.
Well, I suppose so, but I mean, they did have you know, Fabian Delph play there. They've also had what's his name, Mendy, the Twitter god. But Leroy Sané's played there this season, and he's not defensive by any means. You know, he's just playing. They're playing so well, and I honestly, I'm gonna throw this down now.
Oh, I don't think I know what I was gonna say.
I can't see them losing a game this season.
Oh,
In the Premier League.
Well, hold on to that thought because I've got a couple of extra points to
Nuggets
take
of information.
from this game. So Sterling got his 9th goal in all competitions in the 64th minute. Sorry, with a tap in. How is Raheem Sterling scoring so many goals? Where has this player been for the last couple of seasons?
Like you just said, the tap-in. I mean, how many goals have been tap-ins for Man City because of
They
how
almost
they
all
play?
are,
That's what I
yeah.
mean. So.
But the cross from Walker that basically like just put it on Raheem Sterling's foot. It was harder to miss than it was to score, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And again, that was from De Bruyne passing it to him from the other side of the pitch.
But I don't think the score in this game was necessarily reflective of the performance from City's behalf because they missed so many chances.
They did. Their shooting was poor. However, I believe they only had one more shot than West Brom. Did they not? If you've seen that stat,
I haven't seen that stat,
I
no.
think maybe West Brom had four or five, and they had 6.
I don't know, but in terms of the most chances missed on the Premier League stats, I think Aguero's up there on the top with 6, and you know you've got to make a lot of chances for Aguero to be missing that many.
Exactly,
So.
he doesn't miss many. No, you're definitely right. But can you guys see Man City dropping dropping many points this season?
Well, like when I threw the fixtures at you, there's no one who really stands out. I mean, I don't know who you can really pick, but I think maybe the Champions League can play a huge role in that. Maybe when they do lose a game, because I don't believe they have.
They haven't, no.
That could then affect the Premier League.
If they're throwing out a weak team to play.
Maybe not so. Maybe just if they lose in the Champions League, the match after that,
True.
I think would definitely be interesting. If they do lose in the Champions League.
Man City are the best chance of an English team getting far in the Champions League this season.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, even watching.
Unless the draws fall really kindly in favour of one team like Arsenal, Arsenal obviously are not in the Champions League.
Thank you, Ross.
Like United or Spurs or someone like that. And if the results fall really nicely, because I know
if Mourinho can kill football into the semi-finals of the Champions League, I'll be very impressed.
No one else will have the audacity to kill a game of football against Real Madrid other than Jose Mourinho.
I almost want to see that because I don't think we've ever seen someone
interested
like Isco or Incensio or Ronaldo or Bale come up against, you know, like an 8-man defence. You know,
curious to see how much he changes his approach in the European competitions because in the Europa League last year we didn't change our approach too much.
True, that's true.
The game against Ajax in the final, you'd think that he'd sort of sit back a little bit, like try and secure the win, but no, it was quite an attacking display.
Wasn't it
Still
Inter
a dead
Milan
final.
who he was with where he essentially just killed a lot of the games when they
Yes,
won
he
there?
absolutely
I was
did.
about to say, I'm sure
And
that's
even
what
at
he did with
Porto,
them.
He won the Champions League with Porto, and it was awful. It was awful football. But I'm thinking about it now. West Brom started that game against Man City with 8 players who were either recognised defenders or defensive midfielders.
Tony Pulis,
8.
boy. What a boy.
And that's not including the goalkeeper.
You know when he signs a player and they probably turn up and say, where do you want me to play, Tony? And
On the line.
Yeah.
He signs Peter Crouch to be a centre-back.
So, should we talk more about the topic of are Man City going to do another Invincibles?
I think they're the best team since that Arsenal team. I really do.
I think it's going to be hard.
If not ever, they genuinely are. But
If they're ever going to lose a big game, it'll be like a 4-3 or something like that. Because I think even in the big matches, I don't think it will be a boring match with Man City playing. I don't think at the moment you can watch a Man City game and be bored, because they're playing such attractive football, which sort of counters the other side of Manchester, where loads of people are criticising Jose Mourinho for playing boring football. And now Manchester City are just not walking the league. They're only 4 points ahead of United, but I mean, they're winning the league. Well, they're on top of the table, should I say, with using a really attractive style of football, which is quite...
But their tactic essentially is score as many goals as possible, because that way
that should be any manager's tactic. That's just the fundamentals of football.
Well, I said to you that was what we were going to have to do this year, but I mean, it doesn't always work out that way.
If you're scoring 5 goals a game, you're not going to lose many, even when you've got John Stones and Otamendi at the back.
That's a fair point, but I'm just going to throw out there and say, I think City will slip up against some teams.
I can see someone like Southampton going to the Etihad, just playing some really, really dead football and just grinding out a result. So, actually, even better, Claude Puel, who is the manager I had in mind, but he's got a new club now, going to the Etihad, or them coming to the King Power and just playing some dead football and grinding out some ridiculous result and nicking it in the last minute from an over-the-top Jamie Vardy. It's a very specific prediction. If that happens, if that happens, then
I actually think that if City were to lose, if Spurs get a good run of form up in Wembley and they start making that stadium their temporary home, I think Spurs are the one side that could outclass Manchester City, because they're the only other side in the Premier League who've achieved results, in my opinion, through attractive styles of football.
I can't wait for that game of football. I think we should do we basically do now, but if we do a whole podcast on that one episode, or one match, I should say, that would be.
I think
be funny.
Both of those teams are so well suited to play against each other to make it an amazing game of football, and I can't wait for.
They just don't play English football, and English football's boring. It just is. I'm sorry, Tony Pulis. I've got so much respect for the guy, but he is boring.
So Liam, do you think that Man City are going to go unbeaten for the whole season?
I don't think so. I even want to throw it to when we play them next week. I reckon.
You think?
I mean...
You're playing at the Etihad.
Yeah, but I think... Forget the fact it's Man City. Obviously, they're rocking the 3 at the back. You need a team who's got some of the best wingers playing. I think that our front 3 can definitely do some damage against that defence, but it just depends how much damage they do against that.
It depends if Sanchez is on form or not. If Sanchez is up for it, then he can really turn that defence inside out.
Well, even if he does put a good performance on, I'm sure even Man City will be happy knowing that he'll probably go there in January.
I was just about to say, before you guys talked about that Man City will be playing with 12 men because it's basically an audition for Sanchez.
You gotta look at it on the flip side as well. That Man City attack against your defence, the odds are not in your favour.
Definitely not, but I mean, we played, I know it was earlier on in the semi-final of the Cup, and we did them over, but I know it's a different side now with all the momentum they've built up, but I don't know, we can be fluky at times.
Just Bernardo Silva on the bench, I think it says so much.
Yeah, that's a fair point, well made. And good to see Ilkay Gundogan getting a run.
I know,
I love Ilkay. He's like the most non-footballer ever, isn't he?
Manchester United legend, mate.
He just comes on and he plays some football and we enjoy watching him, and then he's out for 6 months and nobody remembers him until he comes back from injury and I remember him. Yeah. He used to play football.
On his day, he's a world-class midfielder though. That's just the madness about this. It's just crazy. It's
like when Paul Merce started playing for that team just outside of Cardiff. It was like, oh, I remember him. He used to play football. How long ago was that? 12 years ago? Oh, really? Wait, he's still a player? You're sure about that? Was he playing for Dortmund in 2012? Nah, really.
Is he still considered... he was quite obese. There was photos going around whenever. I mean,
No,
obviously when he was last
He
playing. I
did.
don't
He
know
did
when
whip
this
into
was.
shape because I remember in his first couple of games for Manchester City at the beginning of last season, he did have a couple of really good games.
Oh right.
Yeah. So
I think he ran that Champions League final and that they lost.
so anyway, we'll move on from Manchester City into the big game of Saturday, which was Manchester United versus Spurs. Let me just we've got a new soundboard. We're trialing a soundboard system, so we've got a little clip for you.
There's no way Spurs deserve to lose that.
You don't win games.
Or
Okay,
maybe
so-
we don't.
So
oh wait, yeah we do. I
I'm
I
just
can't
gonna-
hear it.
I'm just
It's not gone well.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say straight off the bat that Spurs did not deserve to win that game.
You can't tell me Spurs didn't deserve to win.
Jermaine Genius will disagree with me. But going into the game, both sides were without key players. Obviously, Tottenham were without Harry Kane still after he did his hamstring in last week. Kane's absence, though, allowed for Heung-min Son to start up front. Obviously, United were without Paul Pogba. However, Eric Bailly did return to the United defence, which was good to see in my perspective. No Llorente, though, starting in Kane's absence, and no Davison Sanchez either. I was really surprised to not see Fernando Llorente start.
I think he, in Pochettino's eyes, is the kind of player you stick on at the last minute when you're kind of under the cosh and you want to try and, just haul it up to him.
But in terms of, like, he was bought as a replacement striker for when Harry Kane got injured, and Harry Kane is injured and he's not starting. He's still starting Heung-min Son up
Was he
front.
though? Because I'm not sure that he was. I think he was just brought in as another option because... Oh, I've gone blank on his name, but the guy they've sent off to Fenerbahce, the Dutch lad, Vincent Janssen.
Oh, I thought we still had him. Dear me.
No, he's gone off to
they let him
Fenerbahce,
off.
and he's playing well actually. Apparently, I haven't watched him, but I think him and Kane were two similar players. The problem was that Janssen was bad. And
Clear difference.
He just yes. Did you remember that miss that he was like? It was an open goal and he hit the bar. And I was just, it's just a great clip. Anyway, we don't need to talk about that. I do think that Heung-min Son has played striker in his career before at Leverkusen. I do think Poch sees him as his sub striker.
But for me, Heung-min Son could be getting into the starting 11 though. Yeah, I mean, depending on what system they use, because obviously if they still play the 3 at the back, or when they decide to play the 3 at the back, there's obviously going to be a front 3 of Kane, Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
it depends which player is going to replace Dele Alli or Christian Eriksen.
Which in my eyes is Son.
Yeah,
know,
but Son hasn't played that many games so far this season.
He hasn't, has he?
No.
But then Poch likes him. He clearly likes him. He speaks
Yeah.
very highly of him, and he also, played him at left back or wing back just to get him in. But now Ben Davis is playing too well. You can't drop Ben Davis
Yeah.
at the moment. It's not a sentence I ever thought I'd ever have to say.
But no, speaking of back threes, United did decide to adopt a back 3 to match Spurs' tactics, and it was actually a back 3 this time. It was not a back 5, but
I'll take your word for it.
Musa Sissoko.
It's Mourinho. He always plays with the back 5.
So early into the game, Musa Sissoko absolutely skied an easy shot after miscommunication by De Gea and Jones, which was quite a prevalent theme throughout the game. It seemed that De Gea was miscommunicating a lot with his defenders.
Wait, Musa Sissoko missed an easy chance. Nah,
I know.
nah.
But it was also a great block by Ben Davis after he gave the ball away, but he managed to slide in to prevent Rashford from scoring. Then a series of substitutes from Mkhitaryan and Rashford went off. For Lingard and Martial. Lingard obviously having an impressive game. The couple of games previous against Swansea in the League Cup. But up until then, it was a pretty relatively tame game, should we say. There was a lot of chances from United, a couple from Spurs, but
From what I heard, there was a lot of chances where it would have, a lot of people said to me, Kane would have scored them, but I don't know whether that was true or not.
That's so hard to say, though, isn't it? You never know. You don't know the way that Kane plays. He might not have been in that position. It's a very
That's
straw
true.
man argument.
a lot of chances on both sides' behalf. Lukaku hit the post as well. Yeah, a chance for Dele Alli was Spurs' best chance of the game after a lovely floated ball from Christian Eriksen, but Ali obviously missed on the volley. So Jose's substitute tactics then strikes again as Martial slots in quite a poor shot past Lloris, but it was a wonderful assist from Lukaku for the goal. Obviously, De Gea hoofed it from a goal kick. Many believe that De Gea was time wasting or taking too long to score the goal kick, but nevertheless, Lukaku headed the ball on probably about 45 yards out from the goal into the path of Martial, who slotted it home past Lloris, which sort of backs up my point that I've made in previous weeks of Lukaku needs players to run off of him, because Lukaku is a great playmaker as well as a striker. In fact,
I would say he's probably better.
Well, I've mentioned to you before we start recording, Lukaku hasn't scored since the 30th of September in the league, that is, but he's still on 7 goals, so that just shows his previous run of form that he was in before then. But Lukaku needs to score another goal just for my heart's sake, because he got 7 goals and 7 goals and 3 assists in 10 games, which equals a contribution every game. But he needs to get more goals for me right now because he hasn't scored in.
Do you think that's because people aren't running off him enough, or do you think just he hasn't got the technical ability at
He has got the technical ability because he had a cracking assist for Rashford's goal last week as well. The cross into Rashford's header, I believe, against Huddersfield. That was a great ball as well.
You might not like this, but I had a really interesting thought when I was watching that game. I was like, if he had Martial and Rashford playing off of him with Mkhitaryan kind of in the hole.
Yeah.
I know that's far too attacking for Mourinho to think
put,
about. Four attackers.
To put 4 players up front.
I know.
I think he would have a heart attack.
But kind of a diamond, and then I suppose behind them you can have. I mean, sure, you're sacrificing someone in midfield, but that would be the perfect idea. You know, if you've got someone like Matic playing in front of the back 4 in that formation, kind of a diamond, I suppose it is, and then you've got this perfect balanced team. The problem is, there's no way Mourinho would ever do it.
No, even if we do decide to adopt the 3 at the back a lot more and start with a 3 up front, it could be like Lukaku and Martial or Rashford as the strikers, and then Mkhitaryan behind them as like a number 10, basically.
Yeah.
So we're starting with 2 strikers, but we're not necessarily sacrificing like a number 10 or something like that, which I think would be good. But basically, Lukaku needs players running off of him because he creates a lot of chances, and he can't be the one who creates them and scores them.
He's not that kind of player, is he?
No.
And we've all seen, like, he scored 1 or 2 goals where he'll take the ball from midfield, carry it forward and score, but he's not that mobile to do it every week in, week out.
No, but
like, dare I say it, Harry Kane.
Martial getting his 4th goal of the season as well, just a fun stat. So yeah, basically it was a pretty even game overall, but United did deserve the win, I think. I think they obviously capitalised on the goal in the last 10 minutes, which has become a staple of our game so far this season. Mourinho obviously shushing the cameras after the final whistle, which I thought was quite funny. I heard a lot of Match of the Day pundits say that was to the fans, but I'm sure that's to the press.
Oh, almost definitely.
Almost definitely to the press. But interesting enough, as I was watching Match of the Day, because obviously I wasn't able to watch the game live, but Danny Murphy called United's defence the best in the league.
He's wrong.
Yeah, no way. I know who I would give it to, and I don't want to say
Spurs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you.
Without a doubt, like, really.
But that's a foreshadowing for later on in the show. So so we'll kind of gloss over it. But we did mention before the show. You know, do we think Spurs are a one-man team? Because I think this performance shows that they're not. I know that they lost. I honestly think if Harry Kane started, they wouldn't have won it anyway.
I think that they mentioned it on Score. I think BT's equivalent of Soccer Saturday. I believe
the
it
BTEC
is, or whatever.
Yeah,
pretty much. And the pundits on there, I can't remember who they were, they said that they didn't believe they were a one-man team, but they questioned the performances of Dele Alli and the other players in the team who you'd expect to step up in Kane's
I agree with
absence.
that. I think the one thing that separates, for me, Dele Alli from Christian Eriksen is the ability to perform even when the rest of your team is performing poorly, or like even that separates him from like the likes of Sanchez or someone like that. The thing that's keeping Dele Alli from being in the top 10 players in the league is that mental attitude, I think.
Oh, he's very immature in terms of a footballer.
Yeah, he's
level.
very arrogant as well. I feel just from watching him.
But not gonna say that Spurs are a one-man team.
You've done the Guardiola. You've literally gone to say Spurs and called them Harry Kane.
Well, maybe that's telling of what I have
don't
to
think
say.
Harry Kane's a one-man team.
I'm gonna say Spurs aren't a one-man team because they've got so many other great players in their squad, which we'll get onto later. But without Harry Kane, there's no way that they can perform nearly as well because Harry Kane is that good.
The last 2 games where he's been absent, so
Yeah.
it is telling.
Anyway, I think we need to move on to 2 teams who probably started the week with very similar fortunes. That's Leicester versus Everton, but certainly end it with completely different ones.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, both teams have had an interim manager come in, and Michael Appleton won his. David Unsworth. Also, has anyone ever heard of him before this? I definitely hadn't.
I think he was Koeman's assistant because I heard a lot of people talk to him as wanting to get the Everton job to build his Everton. So I think he has got...
He's an Everton boy,
yeah.
isn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, and David Unsworth lost his first and then his second. His audition for the vacant manager job has not gone well at all.
No, but going into the starting 11s, he must have listened to last week's podcast because Kevin Morales and Aaron Lennon started on the wings.
Yes.
I read that this morning.
We're taking complete credit for that one. In fact, only 2 of Ronald Koeman's signings started in that game.
But boys, he scrapped the wingers at half time. I think we were wrong. We completely doomed them.
So David Unsworth is a fan of the show. I was going to say, David, come on any time. Please, especially since you're going to have a lot of time in your hands because you're not getting the Everton job.
Oh, wow. No, it was great to see Kevin Morales back on the pitch because I do rate him highly.
Yeah.
But I was quite confused to see Dominic Calvert-Lewin ahead of Niasse starting up front.
They started up front.
I think they played a 4-4-2.
They did,
Yeah.
with Rooney playing up front with him, and I'm pretty sure Rooney's average position was in the centre circle, so he was told to play striker, but
sure,
definitely
I
wasn't.
don't think Rooney's played striker in probably 7 years.
But he should be playing that. I think he's got 2 distinct positions at the moment, either a striker who kind of, in a way, goal hangs, he hasn't got the pace to catch up or play off the shoulder, or at centre mid. And at the moment he's playing in a weird kind of number 10 role, and we've already talked about this, how Everton have got 10 number 10s. They don't need another one. Let's just tell him to do one or the other, and at the moment he's trying to do both, and it's just not working.
But despite Everton obviously losing 2-0, now that Ronald Koeman's gone, can Kevin Morales become Everton's main man? Can he help turn their season around?
I think so. I think he's a brilliant player. I've always thought that he's played well, and he's a bit unfortunate to have ended up at Everton of all places.
Yeah.
I mean, a 4-4-2, really? I mean, how many years ago did we say that 4-4-2 was...
Well, unless you're Leicester, it doesn't work. And even Leicester have stopped using 4-4-2 at the moment.
Claude Puel's revolution of 4-2-3-1. Mara's at number 10. Who knew? Maybe he'll sign for Everton. I don't know. But here's another good start. Everton, their highest shot taker in that game was Phil Jagielka.
Oh dear.
So that really says everything about that performance. In fact, Calvert-Lewin and Rooney didn't have a shot on target at all. So that's not a good look for the 2 strikers. And even if you would, Gylfi Sigurdsson didn't even start, and you'd think that he would in that kind of 4-4-2.
I think he would as well.
Here's I think this is the stat of the week, right? Gylfi Sigurdsson, they always say, well, yeah, he can take good free kicks. He is out in Europe. 935 people have taken free kicks out of Europe's top 5 leagues. He is bottom. He is 935th in all free kick takers across Europe's top 5 leagues.
What are the parameters for this table, though?
Don't question the stats, Ross. The stats don't lie.
in Everton's defence in the game, they were denied a clear penalty.
They were.
After Aaron Lennon went down in the box. I think that should have been a penalty, and it might have turned Everton's game around, but who knows. It was 2 very early on goals for Leicester that did secure them the win. Jimmy Vardy scoring in the 18th minute thanks to an assist from Riyad Mahrez, and then Damari Gray with a wonderful cross into the goal.
I remember. Oh gosh, yeah, the far post really nodded that one in really well. No, I remember seeing Damari Gray play for Birmingham. I think he was 17, maybe 16 at the time, and he played for Birmingham in the Championship against Cardiff, and he tore Cardiff a new one, and he was fantastic. And all the Cardiff fans were saying, "Oh, say what, hope we can sign him." And then the less deluded among us were like, "Oh, he's going to be a Premier League winner one day." Never thought it'd be with Leicester, but I was really impressed with his performance. The second goal, he took the ball from defence into attack, and then I thought he was. Well, sorry, the first goal, wasn't it?
Which one?
Leicester's first goal.
I can't remember.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay. I'll take your word for it.
The stats don't lie.
There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
But does this game mean that Riyad Mahrez is returned into his old self? Is he gonna renovate himself as a number 10 now, do you think, under Claude Puel?
Well, it depends, because we've talked about the unrest in that team. I mean, there's been so many rumours that they go to the owners themselves and complain. So, I mean, how long it'll take or how many bad results before, that tick-in
If
again.
If there's one thing this game confirms is that the Leicester team are complete snakes. They've got 2 managers sacked now, and I think Ranieri won his first game. So did Appleton. So did Claude Puel. So that and Craig Shakespeare as well.
So if they just
they're all winning their first games.
If they just keep changing managers every game.
Next week on the Leicester roundabout, Sam Allardyce.
Is this another case of a player who's auditioned for a move away in January, or do you think that Riyad Mahrez genuinely wants to do well at Leicester?
Well, I mean, obviously he handed the transfer request in, didn't he, over the summer? And then his first few performances were abysmal, and no one's going to want to sign him. Roma were trying to.
They did put a £35 million bid in.
He had quite a bad season last year, though. He wasn't.
Yeah, he did definitely.
He was nowhere near the player that he was the season that Leicester won the league.
Claude Puel was really hard done by Southampton. We've talked about it a bit on the show before that. I mean, he finished 8th for Southampton and was sacked because he didn't play attractive football. Now, you don't hear West Brom fans complaining, and they finished it. Was it 9th? I think it was 9th.
That's the least Premier League reason I've ever heard.
It's so silly. It's like, all right.
Who does Southampton think they are?
Exactly. Oh, they're spoiled by Pochettino. It's not. It's what's his name? Ronald Koeman wasn't like the greatest football manager of all time.
We have Gabbiadini on our team now. We should be winning the league with attractive football.
Fraser Forster, best goalkeeper outside the top 6. We should be doing amazing. No, that's not how it works. By the way, that's not true. I
was going to say Kasper Schmeichel. Come on, Bev, don't you listen to these podcasts?
No, I don't, because I'm in them. But I mean, I suppose Southampton fans they booed Claude Puel on the last day of the season because they drew 0-0. It's like, who do you think you are? If this was Man United fans drawing 0-0 to whoever they played, then sure, fine, whatever. But no, you were really out of order there, Southampton. Either way, he's gone to Leicester, and I think Leicester will finish above Southampton this year.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
I think he's a good fit for them.
He's brilliant. I don't know why he was sacked. I don't know why he wasn't picked up sooner by some team on the continent. They deserve him more than we do.
I bet Everton are kicking themselves. They're just like, damn it, we could have had Claude Puel.
We're going to have to deal with Chris Coleman now.
But no, well, that leads us into the other Sunday game, which was Brighton 1, Southampton 1, funnily enough. A goal from Stephen Davis in the 7th minute. And Glenn Murray in the 52nd created the deadlock. A good result for Brighton, or a bad result for Southampton, do you think?
Good result for Brighton, I think. They are playing a lot better than I thought they would. They're playing a standard 4-4-2. Very similar tactics to the way they did in the Championship, and I was wrong, clearly. I said that if they played the way they did in the Championship in the Premier League, they would have a rude awakening, but they've recruited well. Anthony Knockout can't even get in the team, and he was the Championship Player of the Season last year.
Well, just a fun stat, Glenn Murray has now scored 3 goals in 2 matches.
Don't talk to me about Glenn Murray. If Glenn Murray can make it as a Premier League player at his age, then we've all got hope, lads. I'm just saying.
So Liam, good result for Brighton or poor result for Southampton? What do you think?
I think a bit of both. I mean, I think Brighton are only a point behind Southampton now, and that middle of the table sort of battle is going to be quite juicy indeed, especially with the teams at the bottom who don't seem to be recovering at the moment. So
The leagues so far this season basically seems like top 6, relegation zone. All the
and a
people,
big sandwich.
all the people in the middle can play for either of those, apart from
yeah.
you know.
But Southampton and their weird hybrid of Maurizio Pochettino and Manuel Pellegrini and Maurizio Pellegrino.
Have you seen the photo of Pellegrino and Chris Hughton side by side?
No, I don't.
Pellegrino just towers over Chris Hughton's quality.
Pellegrino was a good player, and I think he was a decent manager before, but I can't see him doing too much with Southampton. I honestly can't. Especially with fans booing you when you draw 0-0.
Well, the Southampton team has had so much promise over the years. Like, on paper, they're a decent team who I'd pip to easily crack the top 10, possibly top 8 every season.
Well, on paper, the Southampton team from a few years ago is, what's it called? Liverpool.
Liverpool 27-18, also known as Southampton 2014-15.
Exactly. Well, in fact, it was Liverpool 2015. Was Southampton 2013, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the big one where they had Ricky Lambert playing up front, who went to Cardiff and West Brom after that.
I'm sure there must be a Liverpool scout hidden in that Southampton academy somewhere, just in the corner with his little billboard.
It's so bad that at this point, like, they don't even want to sell Virgil van Dijk to Liverpool, despite them paying £75 million for him.
So yeah, that rounds up Sunday's results. Going into Monday, which was probably the most boring game of the weekend.
I didn't even know there was a game on.
Yeah, there was. It was
So
Burnley
true.
1, Newcastle 0. But what it does mean is that Sean Dyche's men, Burnley, are now, I believe, in 8th place.
Let me have a
Level
look.
on points with Liverpool, I
Yeah,
believe.
level on points with
Yeah,
Liverpool.
it's 7th.
Oh, the
now.
7th. Okay.
I'm
Well,
so
that's-
happy for them as well.
Well,
I like Sean Dyche. I've always liked Sean
Exactly.
well,
Dyche.
that leads us into the topic of Sean Dyche being, I think, is 2-1 to be the Everton's next manager.
No,
In his position right now, with Burnley up in 7th, would you go
No.
to Everton?
No, you wouldn't, would you?
No.
Like they got Chris Wood scoring goals in the Premier League. I mean, he must be doing magic. I remember seeing him in the Championship a few years ago, and they got promoted, and the first interview he did was like, you know, our main goal is to not finish bottom. And they did, and they went straight down and then straight back up again. And now look what they're doing.
Yeah.
I love
I love Sean Dyche. I love his post-match interviews as well. I just think he's a no-nonsense guy. He says what's on his mind, and
Yeah.
he's been getting the results, which I think is great for Burnley.
Yeah, there's a great video a few years ago that surfaced on Transfer Deadline Day. At the time, Grant Holt didn't have a club. I think he was 32 or whatever, and he was just recovering from a knee injury. Somehow, someone got his agent's phone number and phoned him up pretending to be Sean Dyche,
Oh, I see.
saying that he wanted to
Seen
sign
this.
him for Burnley when they'd just been promoted to the Premier League. I think it was the second time, and he. He managed to get Grant Holt on the phone, and I felt so bad.
No.
It was the worst thing, because you could hear in Holt's voice that he was really like, oh, this is my chance, lads. I'm going to be a Premier League player again, when I think he'd just been released by Norwich. So
I remember seeing the YouTube channel as well. I think it was Copper 90. I think they were trying to get a footballer, a club, and they put out like almost like a plea video showing what he could do. And I was like, does it ever get lower than that?
what was your pinnacle of your football career? Did a video with Copper 90.
Yeah, but
Oh,
no, sad
gosh.
times. But in terms of saying would he go to Everton, I mean, you talk about managers having their own teams, developing their own teams. I mean, I've never seen a team which lacks such an identity as Everton's at the moment. I mean,
what do they want to be? They don't even seem to know what
I
style of
just don't
football
know.
they want to play at the moment.
It's
No.
like the Swansea way. Like, what even is it?
Well-
What was it? You know, now they're
Yeah.
talking about the Everton way. It's like, well, what way is that?
Well, I was watching David Unsworth's post-match interview, and he said that the previous manager, Ronald Koeman, didn't play the style of football that he wants to, so he's going to reshuffle the team again. So do you think
Dear God.
Everton just don't know, or they seem to not know what they want to do at the moment, because they clearly come with the intentions to challenge for top 7, possibly get another Europa League spot, but
Well, what
It's not working.
What happens when David Unsworth spends another 100 million in January on Stuart Downing?
Do you think the Everton board will take the risk of spending another 140 million on players right now?
If they do, I tell you what, they're the banter kings.
It's just
They're trying to liquidate Everton from the inside out.
It's just the tactic for all like football clubs in Liverpool. It's just like no matter how bad the successes are, just chuck another 100 million next summer. We'll be fine.
Secretly,
Markovic 30 million. Yeah, get him on.
Secretly, it's Fenway Sports of Liverpool's just eating away at Everton. It's like, oh, what's that? Yeah, Grant Hull. We'll take him. How much you want? 60 million. Double it.
I mean, I'm probably quite hypocritical for the amount that Manchester United have spent, but I mean, we've got the money. Most valuable club in the world, isn't it? Anyway.
I think the interesting
Gerrard.
Sorry, one more before we move on from them. I think the interesting question would be if they do continue in the form they are throughout the season, will be like how much money they can actually recoup off of some of these players, if anyone wanted them, that is.
The point is, like, they're paying Wayne Rooney, I think, 150 grand a week. Next year, that doubles. They've got to pay his full wages, because at the moment Man United are still subsidising some of them.
Cracking deal.
It's pretty impressive. So they essentially are taking on another, I don't know, 2 quality players worth of wages.
Oh, more than 3 easily.
Right, then
Well,
3.
you have a look at Spurs' wage system. That's 3 Spurs players. What would you rather, one Wayne Rooney or 3 Spurs players right now?
Depends which 3. If it's Kieran Trippier, then you can keep him.
Anyway, so that concludes this week's results roundup. Again, a pretty uneventful week of football in comparison to last week, but hey ho, that's that. We've got Champions League this week to look forward to, so there's that.
I never look forward to the Champions League. I just sit in the pub and watch the games like, oh, that's on now.
Anyway, so this leads us into our rubbish transfer rumour of the week, which comes courtesy of The Sun. Have you heard this one, Liam? Have I talked to you about this one?
You might have, I don't
Right,
know.
okay.
Me and Ross discussed it.
So according to The
Brilliant.
Sun, Morata is currently unhappy at Chelsea due to reports, or due to an interview he did with Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy, because obviously Chelsea are playing Roma this week in the Champions League, so he's
He used
back
to play
in
for
Italy.
Juventus.
He used to play for Juventus. He loves it in Italy. You can connect the dots, but
He's not going back.
no. So The Sun yesterday, in fact, 30th of October at 1:14 p.m. published an article titled "Chelsea striker Alvaro Morata insists he doesn't expect to live in stressful London for long and wishes he'd never left Juventus."
Oh, it's so stressful getting paid 150 grand a week.
Living in
Oh.
London. I mean, what is there to do around
The
London?
stress.
You know?
I can't imagine how hard must it be for a footballer to live in London. I know. No, I can't deal with it.
So Morata supposedly told Gazzetta dello Sport, I say supposedly, I live in Central near Chelsea. I really love the multiculturalism of London, the different cultures and religions altogether. But
Sounds like he's unsettled.
I wouldn't stay here long term. That's the main thing they took about it. It's too big, too much stress, too many zones. So obviously he wants to move from Chelsea. The article then says, before returning to Los Blancos, Morata had spent 2 seasons in Turin and insists that if he'd had his way, he would still be there. Which was actually quite an interesting point to take away from this interview. The fact that he would have stayed at Juventus if Real Madrid didn't call him back.
Because they had a buyback clause, didn't they, of about 20 million euros?
And so they bought
Real
him,
Madrid, yeah.
and then sold him, which is like...
About a season later.
It was cracking business from Real Madrid though, buying him back for 20 million, selling him on for 60 or 54 or whatever they bought him for. It's mad, isn't it?
I don't see Perez as being a business mastermind, especially with the amounts of money he spent over the years, but that was really good business.
It was. At 6:28 p.m. on the same day, The Sun then published another article titled "Alvaro Morata dismisses Chelsea exit fears and would happily sign a 10-year contract to stay at Stamford Bridge."
That's 5 hours and 14 minutes later.
So, in the article, The Sun says that Alvaro Morata says that if I can make good and improve, I can maybe stay here longer than 5 years. We have a problem with the interview. All I said was I was happy at Juventus. Morata basically hit the nail on the head here. Many are blowing the Gazzetta interview way out of proportion. But I just think this is quite funny from The Sun to publish an article saying that oh, he might leave Chelsea this summer, and then 5 hours later saying, oh no, he says he's not leaving now.
it's
He says he's going to
ridiculous.
sign a 10-year contract, you know.
Are you telling me the Sunsport would lie?
I'm not making any accusations, Bev.
Yeah, yeah.
Keeping them future prospects open.
So yeah, that's basically our funny transfer rumour of the week. It's not as extreme as Ozil to Manchester United or anything like that, but I found it quite a funny story, and yeah.
The context makes it. Context makes
Yeah,
it
yeah.
cringe.
I thought it was funny, but basically this is the one of the main parts of the show. Returning this week again, our top 5 countdown of the week.
I have a stat that I forgot to mention. I want to say it now.
Okay, go for it.
Just so, Jamie Vardy has scored 13 goals in his last 15 home games. There we are. That's what I wanted to say.
Oh, that's decent. For the record. I think, well,
I just forgot completely to mention that, and I thought that was quite good.
Well,
So,
Jimmy
sorry.
Vardy had a great game on the weekend, so I'll just throw that out there.
Speaking of underrated players, no.
Segues. But no, this week's countdown is the top 5 most underrated players that we think in the Barclays Premier League. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I've ranked mine in terms of how much I think people underrate them. Not necessarily a list of underrated players and ranking them as how
Just
good
how
they
much
are.
they're underrated.
Just how much I think they're
I'm gonna
underrated. So I just preface
mine by turning my laptop away from you in case you see any
Yeah,
of my
Bev,
poor
then.
choices.
I'm not looking. I've got my phone on.
Okay.
We also said as well, because last week we talked about, or was it 2 weeks ago actually, our favourite players outside the top 6.
Yeah.
They are not in any of our top 5, so
No,
you have
no,
to
no.
go.
I did message the boys earlier this morning saying that I think we should not include any of the players in that one list because it would just get boring for you to listen to if we.
I'm not sure about the
same
others,
players.
but my player would definitely be in this top 5.
No, mine wouldn't.
Okay. Would your most underrated player be in this top 5? Outside the top 6? Yeah, the one we did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I know you're on about. No.
Was
no.
yours Richarlison?
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's.
He's probably a bit
It's
overrated
been-
at the moment now.
Yeah, it's still early days, but yeah.
No, okay, well, fair enough. But mine definitely would be. But I suppose that means I'm starting it off.
We'll start off with the honourable mentions first.
Oh, can
Oh.
I throw some?
You've
Can I throw?
Yeah.
Please, you
last
throw
time you threw the honourable mentions, and they were pretty much all of mine, so I had to just agree.
Okay.
I didn't do any honourable mentions this week because
Oh, did you not?
I
No.
know because I did
I've got 4.
5 last week and I thought that was too much.
I've got 4 this week.
I
All right, you throw some names around, boys.
I got a mad one for you. Maybe mad, maybe not.
Go on.
Johnny Evans.
Ooh.
Just because he was so poor at United.
I'm sorry, I was
cringe at
He-
that.
He
You know
came
what?
up in so many teams. I was gonna
I
include
actually
him at
fu-
first, but
Bleacher Report on their Twitter have done a string of posting pictures of naughties starting of 11 of a team versus the 2010 starting 11 of a team,
right.
and Johnny Evans got into the 2010 Manchester United team
Oh, blimey.
along with Phil Jones and Eric Bailly. So that
I mean, obviously, there's a reason why. Why did he
Wait,
not end up going to
who would've-
Manchester City?
Because Pulis blocked it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And obviously, we
I-
were interested. as
I
well.
actually think he's a great player. He never came up in any of my research, and he's not
Yeah.
in my top 5. But I don't think that's a bad shout at all.
No.
Next one is Pascal. How did you say his surname?
Ooh.
The Huddersfield player. who's
Oh,
got-
Pascal Gross.
That's the one. I would say it's just it's GRO, and then there's just a huge B.
It's in German.
yes.
I, there is a
I knew
name
it was
for it. In
different.
German, it's 2 S's.
you uncultured swine.
I should know that really. I've been there. a
Did
few
you not
times.
do GCSE German? Because I did.
Another one who appears on a lot of the well, obviously with Grosh.
It's Gross. Gotta roll that
It
R.
just sounds like there's an alcohol, which is
All alcohol is gross.
Get into the honourable mentions because otherwise we're going to go on a tangent about
sorry.
German
But anyway, he's
alcohol.
got 5 assists and 2 goals, so not bad.
Okay.
Schindler for Huddersfield as well. He's in many of the stats.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I've actually got a Huddersfield player in mind, but it's
I
none of them.
Oh, okay. Is it the one that
Oh.
scored against United?
It is.
Oh, God.
And
He's
I-
number 5, so actually we didn't do too badly
Okay,
there.
there
We
we
didn't just blow my number 1. No, it's Aaron Moy.
But I got one more honourable mention, and it's I don't. He might have made one on your list. Shaqiri.
He made my honourable mentions for best
I
player
would
outside
never
top
put
6.
it.
I'd never put him in my top 5.
No. Anyway, my honourable mentions again. He was in my honourable mentions for the best players outside top 6, so it doesn't count. So I'm not crossing over list. But
Okay.
Oriol Romeu of
Okay.
Southampton. I think he's a quality player. Also, Ben Davies of Tottenham. I know that last season especially, when Danny Rose was mainly starting for Spurs, but Spurs did a lot of interchanging with fullbacks last year, which I thought was interesting.
Well, at the start, I think after the first 5 games of the season, Ben Davies had created 3 chances a game on average, which was one of the highest in Europe. So they were comparing. I can't remember which outlet. Some outlet were comparing him to Barcelona players.
Well, Ben Davies.
Ben Davies.
Well, I mean,
I found that funny.
I think considering Danny Rose has been out injured, obviously, well, he's just
coming back.
Just coming back, yeah. But I think Ben Davies has been great as a fill-in for Swansea this season. I think he's versatile as well. Obviously plays as a left centre back for Wales. Can do that for Spurs as well. Can also play left wing back. And considering the left back woes that United have been having recently, I'd really like to sign Ben Davies and have him as a starting player.
I like Ben Davies a lot, actually. He's come of age really quickly.
Especially the last 2 seasons, he's really come into his own.
When he left Swansea, I forget how old he was. I think he was he 21? Something probably about that. And I didn't think he was ready. I didn't think he was ready at all. But Poch just clearly nurtured him and said, you can do this. And I imagine playing for Wales helped him a lot.
Yeah, well, he was a key player for Wales. But anyway, next honourable mention, you're going to love this, Bev, Lucas Fabianski.
That's mad.
I didn't consider any Swansea players because I don't think the Swansea squad is underrated in general. If anything, it's overrated.
No, but I do think...
saves, though, Fabianski, I believe. I'm pretty sure he has most
Yeah,
saves.
but David Marshall had the most saves in the Premier League
that's what I was
season
about
when
to
we
say
finished
to you.
bottom.
Doesn't mean
So it doesn't mean anything.
But I remember how crucial David Marshall was to your team in the Premier League.
He was still our player of the season, and at the time my Welsh teacher was a massive Swansea fan. It was great banter. Never learned any Welsh, but he's a good guy. I can't remember his name. And he said to me when it was Cardiff Player of the Season awards, and David Marshall won like Fans Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year, everything. And he went, "Listen to me, Dan. When I can't do a Welsh accent. When a team finishes bottom and concedes the most number of goals in a Premier League season, and your goalkeeper's still the top goals, your best player, you've got some serious problems."
That just took you straight up for Welsh.
Tell that to Sunderland last year.
And you know what? It's true. It was very true.
I still rate Lucas Fabianski quite highly. Obviously, he was the second choice at Arsenal behind Szczesny.
We had many.
Yeah,
so many
the
second
Polish duo,
choices,
and then obviously Almunia as well. Back in the day,
Yeah.
England goalkeeper legend. Almunia. That's a joke, by the way. But yeah, my last honourable mention is going to be Kurt Zouma of Stoke City, because I think before he got injured for Chelsea last season, I thought he had a really good run of form.
I don't know why they let him go. And
No,
Christensen's been doing really well. I'm glad to see him back because he spent 3 years on loan at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Try saying that 3 times fast. But after he did his knee in, and by the way, that was a horrific injury.
Yeah, it was.
I was really worried for him. I thought that meant he wasn't ever going to
no,
get
it wasn't
back.
last season. It was the season before. Never mind. But he was out for a lot of last season.
I believe
Yes.
you put a tweet up about him, didn't you? Because he signed a new deal with Chelsea, I believe, and then he went straight out to Stoke.
Yes.
Oh wait, he must be on loan.
Is he on loan?
I think
He's
must
on
be
loan.
there.
Yeah.
No, he is.
Yeah, that's
It was
okay
like the life of a Chelsea player. I'm so happy to sign a new contract and also glad to join ex-player or ex-team on loan.
Yeah.
That happened to Tammy Abraham, Kurt Zouma, and who else was it? Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the space of about 3 days.
Anyway, so we'll get into number 5s. Bev, we'll start with yours, because we obviously know who yours is, so just talk about...
Yeah, it's
about it.
Aaron Moy. If you had
Nice.
told me to do this list last week, I would not have said him. Probably one of the honourable mentions I would have mentioned. But I read an article this week. Who was it by? I think it was by Kieran Hennage of the Front 3 podcast. I think I've said his name right. I hope I have. And he pointed out and many points about why he is so crucial to Huddersfield's team. And obviously they've started really well this season. I saw him play for Huddersfield when Cardiff did the double over them last season, but they still went through the playoffs. I had to get that in there. And I thought he was fantastic. And also, it's worth pointing out that he being sold to Huddersfield for 10 million meant that Man City made 5 times the amount of profit they did for buying Melbourne City. They bought the whole club for 2 million and then sold their best player for 10 million.
Nice.
So I thought that was worth mentioning. I haven't got any stats to throw out your way because I just don't think he speaks for himself, and he scored a fantastic goal against United.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Liam, your number 5 pick for most underrated
I've
player.
talked about this position many times, but obviously,
Is it? I think I know who this is going to be.
I put Ndidi in.
Yep.
I think I'd bevel respect that.
I do respect it. I think Adidi's a great player.
I was tied because there's him and obviously Idrissa Gueye, very similar players, but then I didn't realise Idrissa Gueye's 28 and Ndidi's only 20, so I think for him to be doing what he is at the age of 20, I know you talk about players should be doing well at sort of any age, but for that type of role as a 20-year-old, I think is
if you're good enough, you're old enough. And at the moment, he's playing quite maturely.
Yeah.
He started, I think, because they signed him in January, I believe, and he started a few games, and they just didn't seem to click. They were telling him to play like Kante, and it wasn't working for him. But then he came in, scored a worldie of a goal in the cup, I think it was. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And he's just under Craig Shakespeare just kind of come into his own a little bit more, and hopefully under Claude Puel will do the same.
Yeah. But I suppose I got one stat to throw at you for him. I think he's got like 43 tackles, which is the highest, and he was up there, I think, last year. So
I don't think he's got many yellow cards either.
I remember talking to you after Kante left Leicester to go to Chelsea. That I remember watching. I think we were watching the Leicester game together, and Ndidi was playing, and we were like, "Well, Ndidi seems like to be that Kante replacement, even though he's not playing the same style of football as him anymore." I think he could fill that hole.
Kante is such a unique player in what he does, and he does it so subtly that sometimes when you see a player try and come in and mimic what he does, or a similar player to him, like Idrissa Gueye, you can look at him and go, he's actually not doing what Kante does. But in kind of the bare bones term of it, he is. He's just mopping up in front of the back four and linking the midfielders. What I think separates Kante from Ndidi or Idrissa Gueye is that he can do it and also chip it with a goal and also make some ridiculous tackle because he's so nimble. Yeah. His legs are so short.
Quite a lanky guy.
But
so what? He's not exactly lanky, is he? He's quite short.
I thought he was quite skinny.
He is skinny, for sure. Well, what I mean is, and he's also quite humble. He's a nice guy. He still drives a smart car.
Fair enough. Right, I guess I better go into my 5th pick then. My 5th pick is Sergio Romero, United number 2.
Oh.
Which is sort of a spanner in the works for. I don't know if you're going to agree with my pick at all.
I wish I chucked Giroud in now. I was tempted. But
totally coming from an unbiased perspective as a United fan, but I do think Sergio Romero is a great goalkeeper, and the reason he is underrated is because he's been getting so little game time for United this season, especially. I don't think he's played a single game for United this season.
No, I don't think he has.
And even last year he was mainly the Europa League Cup keeper. But he did keep a clean sheet in the Europa League final last year. He made 12 Europa League appearances in total last year, making 8 clean sheets, including that one in the final. In last season, he made 2 appearances in the Premier League, both of which were clean sheets as well.
Oh, wow.
He's obviously the number 1 for Argentina and has been for many years. And the Independent called him the best number 2 goalkeeper in the league, and I believe he is good enough, to get into a lot of people's teams as the number 1.
I don't think he is the best number 2 in the league. I think he's the best number 2 in the world.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, we agree on something. Which I suppose in a way kind of, I don't know, maybe hazards your point that how can someone who's considered that good be underrated?
I mean, Barcelona's 2 keepers are decent. They've got Ter Stegen and then the Dutch
Kasper Cillessen is not that good.
Isn't he?
I don't think he is, at least.
Okay.
He's spent so long in the Dutch league that he thinks everyone plays like the Dutch, and they don't. I think he's been found out because he was signed to be their number 1, and all of a sudden Ter Stegen's got it. Ter Stegen's a good player. No, I mean, he's not in my list because I thought, well, I rate him that highly. Surely some people do.
United fans do.
Yeah.
They do respect him as a player, and the fact that he's willing to sit on the bench as United's number 2 despite his ability, I think it earns a lot of respect from the fans. But when obviously he's overshadowed by how good David De Gea is, no one seems to get a look in towards him in terms of when you think of Manchester United goalkeepers. But obviously there was that period 2 seasons ago in Van Gaal's last season when there was a bit of unrest in the United goalkeeper camp because obviously De Gea was linked with that move to Real Madrid, and then obviously after the 1st of September when the window closed, Van Gaal was like, right, bring De Gea back in, he's fine to play now. And Romero did fill that hole for a short amount of time, and I assume Van Gaal brought him on as a De Gea replacement.
But I was going to say, do you think he'll stay number 2, or do you think that maybe you are preparing for the worst?
How old is he now?
30.
See, he can still do a couple years.
Well, Van der Sar was like 37 when he retired for United.
I don't think he's as good as Van der Sar.
No, I'm just saying.
If you sold De Gea for 60, 70 million,
you're going to get a good deal.
I think
anyway,
I think regardless, Romeo probably could step in to be that number 1. Sam Johnston, who's currently on loan to Aston Villa, would not be a bad number 2 to him.
Joe Pereira as well, our third choice keeper. He's quality as well.
He's not awful. I don't know that much about him, but I know
he's
who
come up
who
through
he
the
is.
academy. He's a quite young lad.
Portuguese, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got options, and then that means that maybe you go 1 or 2 seasons without David De Gea, but then swoop in for Jan Oblak or someone like that. Cause
I don't think it would necessarily be as much of a crisis now as if De Gea left 2 years ago, because I think the United defence is quite solid in comparison. But I do think Romero would do a decent job as United number 1, but I still wouldn't like him as a number 1. I think if Romero did decide to stay another 2 or 3 seasons and then leave to pursue first team football for another club, I think the fans, including myself, will be respectful of that, because he is such a good player and that he should be getting as much game time as he should, but just not ahead of David De Gea in my books.
That's fair.
Anyway, that's my number 5 pick, Sergio Romero.
Cool. My number 4 is Tom Heaton of
Staying on the theme of goalkeepers. He was a name that I looked at. I must say.
Yes, right. Full disclosure, he's a former Cardiff player. So, in a way, I feel bad throwing him in there. However, we've already talked about how highly we praise Burnley on the show.
Well, I mean, Tom Heaton bursting onto the scene in that 0-0 draw against United last season.
He was unbelievable in that game.
I hated him after
that. And now
he's
got an England call up, and whether that's warranted or not is up for debate. But when he left Cardiff, him and David Marshall were the 2 best goalkeepers in the league. We had the best number 1 and the best number 2 because they were the 2 best goalkeepers in the league. It was between one of them to leave. In hindsight, I think we should have kept Heaton.
Oh, really? David Marshall going to Hull City after...
I love David Marshall with all my heart, and I want him back now. Although Neil Etheridge ain't doing awfully. He gets a bit of stick, but I think he's all right. Heaton was younger. Heaton was slightly more immature. I think he had a fight with a fan once, which is probably what did it for him. But and also David Marshall had been there a lot longer. However, you see how he's gone up in the league. He is now a Premier League quality goalkeeper. There's no doubt about that. I feel that Cardiff were a bit hard done by, and it was Dave Jones's fault. Anyway, the reason I think that he's so good is because if you've got Ben Mee in front of you, and I can't even remember Burnley's other centre-back, so that's how bad he is, in front of you.
I can't name the Burnley back 4 if I'm being brutally honest.
I think there's 3 Ben Mees. And if you've got that defence in front of you, and you are, at the moment we're talking about them being a mid-table team, and he's been injured this season, and Nick Hope's come in, and whoever the heck that is, and if he's doing that well, then I think he deserves to be in my underrated players.
No, I'm not gonna argue with that. He was a name up in the air for me. Liam.
My number 4, I threw in Aspilicueta, or however you want to say it.
Interesting.
I've always admired him, and I mean, it's his 6th season, I believe, now in the Premier League. Obviously, he's won it twice.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just been so prominent in that Chelsea team. I don't know what they think as fans, but I'd love to have a sort of player like him.
He's really
in my team.
versatile as
I was
well.
about to say he's played in many positions for them, and
He was a great left back.
even when they've changed formations, he's just adapted. He's got, 4 assists already this season. So
Well, he's in. I remember mentioning at the start last week. He's involved in more goals than any other defender so far in the league this season.
but
I try to avoid players who had won the Premier League because I feel like
Same.
if they then how can they be underrated, or how because everyone overanalyzes like that Chelsea team that won it last year or that Leicester team. Everyone for some reason points out someone like Danny Simpson. For some reason they've like Monday Night Football probably did a whole piece on him. They wouldn't now since Jamie Carragher's had his beef, but they'll point out someone like that who really is an ineffective member of the squad. And I don't think that Azpilicueta is ineffective. I just think that his role has been overanalyzed a little bit.
yeah,
I think
but respect that.
the only reason that he didn't. Well, I do think he is an underrated player because I think he is easily top 5, top 3 defenders in the league, probably for me. But based on my criteria of forming this list, he's not that underrated because there are a lot of people who rate him, I think. But that's just my take on it.
I rate him, but I respect the bringing him up for sure.
Yeah.
Of the 3 people in that defence, he is probably, and I'm talking about Cahill and Luis,
Yeah.
he is probably the best out of the 3, but gets the least credit. So I can see where you're
I'd say so, yeah.
I think it's just because of how up and down Chelsea sort of have been over the years, and he's just been prominent within that team.
He's always been good. I've never seen him have a bad game.
That's what I mean.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, my number 4, starting off the trend of Spurs players, is going to be Heung-min Son. I assume you have him higher up in your list.
I do not.
You do not? You don't have him in your list?
I don't. See,
Did he not make it?
he didn't at
There's
all.
no way he was making it in mine.
No.
I
Anyway.
like Heung-min Son, and if I was to make this list to a top 10, he'd be number 6 for sure. The problem is I already had quite a few, and it's a theme that you'll be seeing now, Spurs players in my team, and I could not justify having that many of one team in my list.
I thought.
So I looked, I soul searched, I looked deep inside myself, and decided that Heung-min Son, because he's not playing that much,
No.
maybe
That's
shouldn't
fair
be in it.
As
However, again, respect the fact that you brought him up
Yeah.
because I do think he's a quality player.
I do think he is underrated. The only reason he's not higher up in my list is because he hasn't played as much, like you said. He's only had 5 appearances so far this season with 1 goal. The main reason he is in my list is based on his form last season, where he won 2 Player of the Month awards in September and April.
Well, as an Arsenal fan, I suppose he's probably the Tottenham player I like the most, I
Yeah.
suppose I can say. I think Thierry Henry's a big fan of him as well, and if he's a big fan of you, you're doing something right.
And he got 14 goals and 6 assists in just 23 games last season in the league, which I think is quite an impressive record.
That's a great record.
It's a great record, with an average rating of 7.14. The stats were actually better than both Anthony Martial and Leroy Sané last year, funnily enough, in terms of better stats. And yeah, he's 25 years old, arrived in 2015 for just £22 million, which continues the trend of Spurs conducting great business, which I'll talk about later on.
Yes. Well, you'll talk about it later on. I'll talk about it now because my number 3 is a little man known as Toby Alderweireld.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
he's much higher on my list.
Jermaine
Is he?
For
Is he
real.
really?
Can we get Jermaine Genus talking a second?
Oh, wait, hang on.
There's no way Spurs deserve to lose that.
You don't win games.
There's no way Spurs deserve
Just
to
because
lose that.
Jermaine Genus said this week that he is the best centre-back in the world.
Oh, my God.
Now, I'm not going to say
Ah,
that, and in a way, I guess you could say it makes my point redundant because I'm saying he's underrated. But he's certainly one of them.
He was...
If
I'm
he's
just going to
not-
quickly say that Toby Alderweireld, he was in my contention for getting on the list.
And if
But
he's,
now, so many people rate him highly.
if he's not number 1 in the world, which he isn't, he's very close to number 1 in the league.
Hands down.
Maybe Van Dijk, but Van Dijk isn't playing very well
I
at the
don't
moment.
know.
No.
League.
Van Dijk
Yeah.
didn't even make my underrated list, or my best outside the top 6 list. I don't rate Van Dijk that highly.
Oh, right.
Alderweireld will get into every single team in the Premier League and most teams across Europe. In fact,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to say it. He could get in every team in Europe.
I'd agree with that. I think he'd be a great fit for Barcelona at the moment.
Barca, Madrid, Bayern even.
Well,
because Bayern
maybe
need
not
a
Madrid.
short
Madrid have
defence.
got Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane. So
Oh,
maybe.
I'd say he's better than Varane.
Would you?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I mean, the point is he came on the scene late, didn't he? He played for Atletico Madrid,
Yeah.
went on
joined
loan to Southampton.
Yeah.
Then Spurs were a bit naughty because they had a obligation to buy, didn't they? Southampton.
Yeah, they
And
raided
Spurs
Victor
said,
Wanyama
we'll
as
give
well
you
as
more.
Alderweireld.
And I think that after all of that, he kind of went under the radar. Now he's playing in a back three as I guess you could say the David
Anchor.
Luiz role, or maybe the Bonucci role, the one who runs up forward a little bit and takes and
Well,
he is unbelievable.
before the revelation of Meunier, he did play right back a lot for the Belgian national team.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he also played left back. Vertonghen also played there. But he is
That's down to Belgium having so many centre backs though.
yeah, and then you got Jordan Lukaku, who's doing a decent job at a left back. Although some say he's still waiting for Hal Robson Carney to turn.
No. Why you got to do him dirty like that?
It's all right. Jason Denia's there as well. They're all like, is he there? I don't know. Maybe.
I've just got Robbie Savage's commentary voice in my head now. Why would you do that to me?
Oh, I'm really sorry. I wished that on you.
Oh.
I'm really sorry about that. Final note on Toby Alderweireld, best centre back in the league for me, and he does not get that kind of credit.
No, I think when you talk about the key players for Spurs, he is definitely one of them. I'll talk about this a bit later, but when you look at Spurs' team, you think of the key players are Dele Alli or Harry Kane or Hugo Lloris. But there's a lot of players in that Spurs team that don't get a look in that I think should. Anyway, Liam, you're number 3.
I'm sure he's higher up on your list. I didn't want to put him on the list, but I put Eriksen in.
Oh, okay.
Didn't want him to go in the list, to be honest with you.
Try and keep this short then.
He's on mine as well.
He's on
Is
my
he
list,
higher
yeah.
up for you?
Yeah.
Only just.
A lot higher for me.
I don't know. I mean, the stats don't lie. He's got about a point a game. He's got about 140 games. Got about 70 odd, combined goal and assists. But I mean, people have been saying he's underrated for years, and time's running out for the kid. I mean, he's got to do something soon because I mean, there's a reason no one's trying to buy him. I don't know. I haven't seen any reports of anyone trying to buy him.
No, I don't know why.
They signed him for 12 million.
Oh, don't get me wrong, money-wise.
That was the best signing I've seen in a
11
very long
million.
time.
Yeah.
11 million.
Signing
But
for
a lot of
11 million.
Tottenham fans who I speak to, because a lot of my friends happen to be Tottenham fans, say like, yeah, he's still young. I mean, how old is he now?
25.
This is what we said about Theo Walcott and look at that guy. So
He was
I mean,
Ajax captain at 19.
How old? Well, hang on. Don't look at my screen a sec. I'm just going to find out. He signed from Ajax in 2013, so he was 23. I remember in like FIFA 12 and 13, he was the player to sign on career mode because he
Yeah,
was so young and his
understandable.
We
potential
all
was
know
so
that
good.
FIFA is the perfect measure for how good players
That's
are
how,
going to be.
it's how I scouted Kylian Mbappe, mate. I got ahead of the curve in
Got
that.
that 92 potential.
Anyway, anything you'd like to argue about Christian Eriksen before we talk about
I
him?
mean, his stats so far, I think he's only got 2 assists, and considering
Yeah.
Kane's scoring so many goals, I mean,
He's playing
don't get
deeper.
I'd say don't get me wrong, he's obviously involved, but I mean,
He's playing a lot deeper than he does normally. For some reason, Poch has got him playing a holding midfield role rather than the Eriksen, Ali, Kane front three that they've been playing with traditionally. For some reason, Musa Sissoko has been playing up there instead.
Some fine.
You know what? I won't
Sissoko.
question the tactical genius that is Mauricio Pochettino, but maybe he should reconsider. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Anyway, Bev, you're number 3.
It's Christian Eriksen.
Is it really?
Is it?
Number 3.
it's the
You said
checklist.
he was just higher than your number 3.
Sorry, did I say that?
It's alright, we'll make
My
mistakes.
no, my number 3 was Toby Alderweireld, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
I think-
In that case, don't worry about Christian Eriksen. I'll talk about my number 3. My number 3 is the wild card.
Oh,
When I was
Ooh.
creating this list, I wanted to add one player.
I don't know him. Who does he play for?
you said
Is he a rapper?
he fills out wild
Oh.
card.
He's got a pot of greed in his hand.
He's got a blue eyes white dragon. I'm sorry, I had to find for Bev.
I wanted to add a player who'd spark debate. And
He's got a shiny squirrel. Someone get him.
Jesus Christ, Bev, come on. Just let me present the show, Bev. Please.
Yeah, sorry, go
Okay,
on, before we
my number
lose.
3 pick is Ryan Bertrand.
Oh, Bertrand. Oh, I took Bertrand out my honourable mentions, which I felt bad for. But
When you said wild card, I didn't think you were going to come out with Ryan Bertrand. I really didn't.
As in, it's too much of a wild card or not a wild card
That's
at all?
such an outside shout, and now I wish I'd said it.
he
for number
was on my
5.
Word document, and I deleted his name.
I'm so glad you agree with that. Anyway, last season, in a quite shoddy Southampton defence, he had 12 clean sheets, 3 so far this season, which is okay. When people think of standout players in that Southampton team, I don't think people really necessarily talk about Bertrand as much, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, in the absence of Danny Rose so far this season, in the England squad specifically, he's been breaking in a lot in the England squad, which I think is great for him.
It's justified.
Ahead of experienced names such as Leighton Baines and Kieran Gibbs as well. I think that shows a lot. And even last summer, he was linked to moves to Man City and Chelsea. And I've seen reports this morning that were published yesterday or a couple of weeks back saying that City are still in for him in January and want to sign him for £30 million.
Dear Lord, that's an interesting one for sure.
So anyway, I think Ryan Bertrand purely because when people think of best left backs in the league, he doesn't get enough of a shout as I think he should.
I think everything you said is fair. Here's a fun bit of trivia for you. He's the only player to win the Champions League on his European debut.
Nice.
Just throwing that out there.
At Chelsea, I imagine, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
I forget that time when he played for Inter Milan.
And Chelsea doing the standard thing of selling a player then wanting to sign him back yet again.
They should, learn by their own standard and just loan him out for 8 years until he's good.
Yep.
Oh well, luck now. I guess he's good.
Let's recall him.
Anyway, my number 3 pick, Ryan Bertrand. Bev,
Very good shout.
You already talked about your number 2.
My number 2 is Christian Eriksen. So
Okay.
if you'd like to take
I'd
your
like
number
to-
2.
Okay, yeah, I'll take my number 2. My number 2 is. Or Liam, do you want to do your number 2 first?
I'll throw mine because it's sort of along the lines of the Chelsea route. Maybe wouldn't classify him as underrated.
Is
but
it Kevin De Bruyne?
No, can you imagine the scenes? No, but maybe overlooked. And I think maybe for Ross a bit, I put Matic in.
Okay,
Oh.
thank you. I
Just
appreciate that.
Mainly not, like I said, not underrated, but overlooked. I mean, he was sold. Like, really? I mean, even you can agree. You was chuffed when you signed him.
That deal of business from United was the best of our window, arguably.
It's unbelievable, but
I'm a big fan of Matic.
I-
I felt like that season, not last season when Chelsea won the Premier League, the last time they won it, so 3 years ago now, that makes me feel old.
yeah.
He was the best CDM in the world at that time.
Yeah, around 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was.
And
he was unbelievable.
I think a lot of, the credit goes to him for also how well Pogba's playing this year.
Yeah,
Without that.
yeah. Well,
So,
there's 3 main areas that we needed to strengthen going into this season. It was striker, left back, arguably, and CDM for me. And the 2 names that were thrown about for United in terms of who would you want to sign as a CGM for me were Fabinho from Monaco and Matic. And in my opinion, Matic just pipped it because of his experience in the Premier League.
yeah.
Fabinho is only 23, and he's been around the block for a 23-year-old. I think he would have been a great signing, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
you definitely
But
picked the right
considering
one.
obviously
Definitely,
Mourinho
yeah.
doesn't stay long at a team. I mean, Matic is perfect.
In terms of a player that's going to hold down your midfield and allow the players around him to flourish, Matic is that
I don't
guy.
know, would you say he's underrated or not? Because again, he won the league, but just for me, it was the sense in that. I mean, he was.
Well, I mean,
think
a lot
he-
of Chelsea fans, when he was linked to United, were saying, "Oh, okay, you can have him anyway. He's dead wood." When he started most of Chelsea's games last year, along with Kante, which I was just like, "Oh, okay, just give one of your starting midfielders
I
to us
would
for
say,
30,
I
40
suppose
million.
bringing
We'll
in
take that."
Kante obviously didn't do any good for him because.
But I mean, I guess they took 2 totally different styles of players. The one thing that was missing in that holding midfield last year for Chelsea was creativity,
Yeah.
and even then, Matic is a really creative holding midfielder player. His ability on the ball of picking up passes, his passing ability is better than most CDMs in the league at the moment, I think. He is so good on the ball, and I think a lot of people do overlook that.
Yeah, I mean,
The fact that he's been given essentially this freedom to Pogba to play a bit more forward cannot be overlooked either.
No.
I know Pogba's injured at the moment, but those couple of games they played together were the best games I've seen Pogba play for United.
Oh yeah, for sure,
for
hands down.
United when I watched them play.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll go into my number 2, which is another Spurs player actually. Me and Bev have talked a lot about him off of. Sorry, I see Liam shaking his head. Anyway, we've talked about a lot about him off of the podcast, and my number 2 pick is Moussa Dembele for Spurs.
Oh.
Shall I par that one?
Please.
Okay. Liam, your number 2?
No, my number 2 was Matic, wasn't he?
Okay,
'Cause
cool.
I've said it
Cool.
before, yeah.
So then my number 1 is actually Christian Eriksen,
Right.
that we've talked about previously. Like we've already
I'm
said.
so triggered right now. I'm sorry.
I know, you just
The
passed
reason
over
Ross
it.
parred that was because my face just scrunched up like I just bit into a lemon and my head dropped.
Just quickly, Christian Eriksen, obviously 25 years old, arrived from Ajax in 2013 for 11 million. 3 goals and 2 assists so far this season, with a pass success rate of 83.3%, average rating of 7.39, 8 goals and 15 assists in the league last year. And like I said, when people look to, well, like I said about Alderweireld, when people look to key players in that Spurs lineup, they think of Kane, Ali, and Hugo Lloris. For me, Eriksen is the thing that makes that team tick, because his technical a bit like on stats on paper, it's just like, it's a bang average centre attacking mid who's had a good assists and goals record, but his technical ability on the ball, he's like a much better Mesut Ozil in my opinion.
I was about to mention Mesut Ozil, because I've seen him being compared to Mesut Ozil quite a lot, but I do think people still consider Mesut Ozil to be on another level.
He's like Mesut Ozil probably about
Spoiler alert,
5
he's
years
not.
ago, like 2013, 2012 era Mesut Ozil, when he was like scoring, when Ozil was scoring like 30 odd screamers for Germany and Real Madrid, because Ozil's style of play has changed a lot, I think, in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But I just think Christian Eriksen, yeah.
So going on to number 1s, and
Liam, do you want to do your number 1 first?
Yeah, well, my number 1 was Toby Alderweireld.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
oh,
Premier League defence this year is just trash, and it has. I can't even think of a good Premier League defence for a little while almost. But
I'll be honest, despite my high praise for him, I couldn't justify him putting him any higher than
Well,
third.
I did
and
say
felt
to you-
Because
bad.
he's already rated so highly by
Yeah,
pundits
yeah,
and
yeah.
fans
I did say
and
to you,
stuff like that.
there's no. I did say to you before the podcast, there's no one I wanted to put in that number 1 spot, but purely just because Man City has shown you how poor Premier League defences are this year. I don't know. I just think the centre back role has lost a lot of his credit, and I feel like he's a player who can definitely bring that back.
Fair. So Ross is
Your number 1, my number 2, I
And,
assume.
yeah. I again had to do a lot of soul searching.
This is Moussa Dembele, by the way, we're talking about, just to remind you.
Thank you. Whether I was going to put Dembele or whether I was going to put Eriksen as my number 1, and honestly, they're probably about level. But for me, when I looked at the stats, which I've come armed with a couple, not many, Dembele, I think, is the one player in that Spurs team that nobody talks about, who gets no credit and deserves all of it.
Okay, so he's only had three starts for Spurs so far this season. Do you want to know his pass success rate?
Please.
95.9%.
Oh, it's so good. Last year, he completed the most number of dribbles in the Premier League of any player.
And across 30 games last season, do you want to know his pass success rate was
Again,
last season over 30 games? 92%.
Crazy.
How
Over
come,
30
but
games.
Is he injured? Sorry, how come he hasn't played as many games
I
this
don't
year?
know. Probably because Christian Eriksen has played deeper.
Oh,
But-
right.
But then the other thing is, along with that, he's completed the most number of dribbles past players and beaten the most number of players in the league last season. He did that with a dribble success rate of 95%. The highest of anybody who attempted more than 10 dribbles.
His dribbling is great.
It's
and I think
unbelievable.
talking about Spurs doing business, They signed him from Fulham in 2012. Remember Fulham, guys? That team.
Blimey.
They signed him from Fulham in 2012 for £15 million.
Was that not the year that Fulham got to the Champions League, Europa League final? They got to the Europa League final and beat Juventus.
I'd love to see that team, that 2012 team.
2012 Fulham.
With him in.
Yeah,
It's
it'd be interesting.
awkward because obviously there's Moussa Dembele who now plays for Celtic.
Yeah.
He used to play for Fulham. So when you say, "Oh, Moussa Dembele, he used to play for Fulham," yeah, he did, but you still don't know which one. For me, Moussa Dembele is the heartbeat of that midfield. He's not quite a Kante player,
No, he's more physical.
a lot more physical. He does give away a lot of fouls and gets booked a lot, but that's because he gets stuck in. When you who did I see? It was an interview with it was many Spurs players, and they were talking about who they think is the best player on the pitch or at every game, and they all said Moussa Dembele. Maurizio Pochettino said that he is one of 5 world-class players he's ever worked with.
Oh wow, that's quite high regard.
In his playing career and his managerial career.
Moussa
And I
Dembele,
don't
world class though. Would you call him world class?
If he was playing,
I was about to say, only
we're
starting
going
3
to go to a
games.
Harry Kane argument here. If he was playing for Spurs, it wasn't playing for Spurs and was playing for someone like Madrid and doing exactly the same job, my God, the praise he'd be getting. And by the way, he would do really well in that midfield because at the moment Madrid's kind of Dembele player is Casemiro. I don't even rate him that highly.
No, I thought Casemiro was sort of a holding player.
Yeah, and that's kind of where Dembele plays. He can
well-
play a little bit more advanced, but if Modric, Kroos and Dembele were playing together, that would be the best midfield in the world.
You think?
Yeah.
Any arguments against Moussa Dembele? Or for
I was quite
anything you'd like
surprised
to add?
by the choice because obviously he hasn't played many games.
'Cause he's
I
underrated.
haven't heard. Well, you got your copy there, but because he's only made 3 appearances this season. So I mean, if he doesn't start anymore,
I think he
then
must have been injured because I don't actually know.
Yeah.
so I
um,
got carried away looking at the Fulham 2012 team and some.
Any
Lord
other
bless
names?
us with some knowledge.
Berbatov was with them,
Yes.
of course.
He would have
Of
been, yeah,
course.
yeah,
Diarra, do you remember Diarra?
Yeah.
Lassana
yeah.
Diarra?
Yeah, French guy, wasn't he?
No. I don't even know what. I'm not going to try and attempt to what that nation is, but Damien Duff. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Oh, Marley.
John Honorisa after
Oh my
Oh,
God.
quality, I remember
I
that.
forget this team.
Yeah.
Oh, they had Hangeland as well. It was a bit of a rock, if we can
Oh,
say.
Brian Ruiz, was he there as well?
Yeah, I think
Yes,
so.
I remember
I'm sure
Brian
he came
Ruiz.
out.
What a guy.
That was a team of Premier League retirees.
Apparently, Frimpong was with them in 2012.
Yeah, he was.
Stay
was,
then, she'll
yeah.
get Frimponged.
Blimey.
Anyway,
Well,
yeah,
right, so
sorry-
next
sorry
week on
about
the In Off the Post podcast, the review of Fulham 2012.
the class of
the
2012.
classic Fulham. That was peak Fulham, that.
Anyway, just to run through our top 5s again, just to so you can grasp it. My number 5 was Sergio Romero. Number 4, Heung-min Son. Number 3, Ryan Bertrand. Number 2, Moussa Dembele, and number 1, Christian Eriksen. Bev, where was your list again?
Just because I'm going to go against the cuff, I had number 1, Moussa Dembele. Number 2, Christian Eriksen. Number 3, Toby Alderweireld. Number 4, Tom Heaton. And number 5, Aaron Moy.
And Liam?
Mine was in 5th, in DD, in 4th, Aspilicueta, 3rd, Ericsson, 2nd, Matic, and in 1st was Alderweireld.
Cracking stuff,
Very
lads.
defensive.
That was probably the best top 5 we've done in a while because there was so much debate going on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of debate. Anyway, so this leads us into a slightly more somber topic. Well, we tried to make light out of it. It's obviously November coming up. And,
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow to be exact. And obviously a lot of people do take part in No Shave November to raise awareness for men's health. So we're going to basically give our recommendations for the best facial hair in footy. I'm going to start off with 2 picks. The one, probably the second best player in the world, Lionel Messi. He's got a quality beard. And my second pick is a Liverpool legend, Raul Morales.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
He had a beard. The thing is, he had no hair as well, like a
No, he
Mohican, didn't he?
When he went to Fenerbahce, and I think United might have, or someone played them in the Champions League, they just focused on his beard, the pundits, because everyone was just like, oh, he used to play for Liverpool. Yeah, but he's got a beard.
Well, I had a couple picks. One of them is, I guess you could say, honourable mention because he shaved it now. Aaron Gunnarsson plays for Cardiff. I know.
Standard.
Standard.
When you expect anything else from Bev?
Oi. When he played for Iceland in the Euros, he had this amazing Viking beard that was so the footballing world was envious of it, and then he made the silly mistake of getting married, so he shaved it off. So he looked about 12 years old during his wedding photos. So I felt really bad for him, but that's not my pick. My actual pick is a one from the footballing past. I'm not sure your boys will know, so I'm going to get his picture up now whilst I'm talking about this.
You might have the same one as me.
Oh, it's all right if we do. I've got another pick, but it is the main man, Lexi Lalas,
from
the
yeah.
USA.
Yeah.
Oh, just look at that. It was brilliant. He had the whole look. He was ginger.
Blimey. He looks like in all seriousness, he looks like an ice hockey player. I see him week in and week out.
There's so many great pictures of him, and he never had like the full beard. He always had almost just a prolonged goatee, which made him look like a billy goat. I always respect this man's beard for sure.
My choice is I'll get the people at home to search who he is, but I believe he's called Paulo Machado or Machado. I don't really know, but he is Movember himself.
Wow!
He played for Olympiacos a few seasons ago, I believe. But if you search him, his surname's
Mr. Movember.
He is Movember. I mean, look at that.
That is quality.
It's incredible.
That is a magnum PI.
He is
mustache.
Movember. I mean, there's nothing more to say about it.
Another good shout is another footballing, not necessarily legend, doesn't play anymore though. Danny Osvaldo. He looked like Johnny Depp. He was a proper hipster mustache, He used to play for River Plate and Southampton actually. Thinking about it, didn't he?
Southampton getting another nod on this week's show.
Well, we tore into them last time we talked about it. Maybe all right. You had Danny Osvaldo. We'll give you that, but don't boo your manager.
Anyway, that was just a little short section.
If you can give, please do give to Movember. It's a great cause. Stop men dying too young. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, basically. So if you're not gonna, if you want to raise awareness by growing a Mo this November, do so. But you can also visit uk.movember.com to find where you can donate to the cause
and grow a mustache. It's cool.
Anyway, moving on from Movember into something that's a lot more current. Today, lads, is obviously Halloween.
Is it? I would never have guessed.
Today is in fact the 31st of October, so it is Halloween, and we thought we'd do a little fun special to discuss our Halloween screamers. So obviously we're talking about goals now.
Bev lost it.
I'm sorry.
So
the head's gone, lad. The head's gone.
Our favourite screamer goals. So I will kick this off with Bev because I watched his with him before we started recording, and it's quite a doozy.
If you haven't seen it, oh my god, I just realised this is going to be the 4th time I mentioned Cardiff on this podcast, and they're not even a topic. So for people listening to this for the first time, will just think I'm a crazy Cardiff fan, which is true for my sins. But then again, it's all potent. We've got the best beard and we've got the best goal ever. Giroud's got nothing on Mark Hudson, who scored against Derby in 2012 from 70 yards out, or actually I think it was 68 when it was measured. The goalkeeper, I think it was Stephen Bywater in goal, cleared it all the way to Mark Hudson, who, under pressure, mind you, as well, chested it down at first time, smacked it with his right foot over the keeper, who he dove to try and save it as well, which made it 20 times better. and it managed to somehow get in.
Are you sure Hennessy wasn't in goal? I'm pretty sure the criteria if you were to score a worldie means he has to be in between the posts.
How to score a worldie? Number 1, play against Wayne Hennessy. Anyway,
Poor geezer.
I'm not going to get the goal up now because the audio would be all over the place. However, definitely Google it if you haven't seen it, or if you have, because you're going to want to see it again. If like me, you watch it every time you go to bed, then you know.
Well, keeping on the theme of choosing goals by teams that you support,
Oh,
I'm
no,
going to
we've all
choose.
done it.
God.
I was just about to say to you, is yours a Manchester United goal?
Oh no!
Anyway,
Damn it.
so
We're
these are
the worst. This is the worst podcast. We are the worst.
Call us
mine's
now
a worthy
reminded. We won't reply.
mine's a worthy one. Mine is Cristiano Ronaldo against Porto in the quarter-final of the Champions League in 2009.
You think?
What a goal this was. So basically, it was 40 yards out. Well, Ronaldo received the ball probably at 50, 45 yards, just touched the ball forward, smashed it into the side netting across the keeper from 40 yards out at 62 miles per hour. It was just an unbelievable goal. And Cristiano Ronaldo himself describes it as the best goal he scored in his career. And before I thought of this one, I was almost tempted to go with that free kick against Portsmouth in 2008.
Oh, that's another
The,
worldie.
Yeah.
the birth of the knuckleball, basically.
Yes,
yeah.
another one.
So, but I just thought that this goal was just ridiculous because it came from nowhere. The game finished 1-0 as well. That was the goal that helped United go through into the semi-finals where they faced Arsenal, funnily enough.
Roberto
But-
Carlos, who?
Exactly, but yeah, this it just makes me so sad to watch this goal because just remembering how good Ronaldo was at Manchester United.
Well,
because
if your goal makes you sad,
It was around then, wasn't it? Sorry to cut you off.
That's all right.
That he was or people were starting to say, "Oh,
Well, he won
he's
the-
the best in the world."
he won the Ballon d'Or that season, I think. I'm fairly sure.
Ooh,
let
fact check.
me just fact check this.
Meanwhile, Lee, please proceed.
yeah, it's an Arsenal goal, obviously. 21st February 2006, obviously we came up against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, and nobody had ever won. A Premier League team had never won at the Bernabeu, and Thierry Henry gets the ball in the 47th minute and just does what Thierry Henry does and just left the team in the dirt, and it is classic finish. And obviously that year we went on to the final, but we won't speak about that. But
just coming back on the fact check, Cristiano Ronaldo did win the Ballon d'Or in 2008, which is quite interesting.
Great.
Great.
Great. Great.
Anyway, yeah, so that concludes that topic. We will
Of
finish
our
the show.
Top 5 football screamers of our own teams.
yeah.
Our favourite goals. Anyway,
Yeah, it is. Do you want to do this, or should we do it together, Ross?
yeah, sure.
Ooh.
No, okay. I don't know what we're doing now.
I don't know what we're doing either.
No, I was going to, because we both tried to introduce the Football Funny section
Okay.
together. I was
No,
like,
no,
should we
go
just
for
say it now?
Go for it.
We always like to end the show on a good note, so I'm going to tell the boys a story that was from football this week. I didn't have to delve into the archives for this one. Serie D, a Torres Calcio player called Giovanni Liberty, I think that's how you say it. Have you heard about this?
Nope.
No.
Good,
Can't say I have.
good. He's received a 5-match ban. I'll tell you what, I'll tell the story in reverse because the club actually released a statement saying this. Our player absolutely did not do what is alleged. There is a fountain in the warm-up area and he was simply adjusting his shorts.
Oh, wow.
He's
Wow.
accused in a 3-3 draw of using his genital organ to make an obscene gesture,
Oh my God.
which is a sentence that I've never thought I'd ever have to say on a football show. However, like I say, the club deny that happened. What they said that they were doing, essentially, was he was, adjusting his shorts. But what he did, because he's been banned for it, is try and urinate on opposing fans.
Oh, no.
So he's a complete scumbag, and he expect nothing less from the fourth
How can
tier
you
of
back him
Italian
up?
football, though, do you? That's a weekly occurrence. Anyway, that's the football funny this week.
And that concludes this week's episode of the In Off the Post podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. It wasn't that happy, but anyway. I thought that was a great story that I read this week. So make sure to donate to Movember and do all you can, because it is a genuinely great cause. We need to stop men dying young, as their slogan goes. Follow us all on Twitter. I'm at DanBevJourno.
I'm at @rdorse_.
I'm at Liam is a journo.
Follow the In Off the Post podcast Twitter, which is IOTP blog. I know it's confusing, but do it. And thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Ta-ra.
Nice one.